Now this here's story's about a man from Tennessee who fought to save something called biodiversity. Yeah, critters and plants in exchange for donations he promised to spend on future generations. As a young man for years he traveled the world and somehow wound up with a hell of a girl. He felt it was destined that he would be king. The cosmos would align and wealth they would bring. But he got his hands on some strange jungle juice, and all of a sudden 4 boys were produced. What choice did he have but to settle on down and try to save nature in a suburban town? For near 20 years now he's slaved night and day to keep those boys fed and the doctor's bills paid. In secret he's dreamt of an alternate lot where instead of Scott Davis he was David Scott. And Scott thinks of all the things he hasn't got. He shakes his fist and curses at old David Scott. When he thinks of all the things he hasn't done, knows David's out there having all this fun. Now old David Scott was a man for the ages, a natural player whose charm was contagious. He moved in high circles and well-heeled crowds where the ladies made sure he was well endowed. When collecting checks from folks around town, his convertible's top was almost always down. He held silent vigils each morning at dawn when, like clockwork, legacy members passed on. When it came to saving the earth's last great places, no one else could ever hold a candle to David. His objectives were simple, each year in review. Conservation success was all that David knew. Capable partners hung on his every word. In meetings and conferences he was always heard. His objectives were sound, his foresight was keen. He was a conservation deal-making machine. Scott thinks of all the things he hasn't got. He'll shake his fist and curse at that old David Scott. When he thinks of all the things he hasn't done, he knows David's out there having all his fun. Now David's kids were successful and grown. He spent his free time between vacation homes. The fridge at his office was always full of good food. His employees had brought him for being the dude. He ate what he wanted and drank fancy booze, still kept the boyish good looks of his youth. He smoked like a chimney, but to doctor's surprise, cigarettes actually extended his life. He traveled the world in a corporate jet whose emissions he balanced with carbon offsets. On land he rode Harleys when he was alone, chasing the women in leather and chrome. Now David's home office was a white sandy beach, no corporate card limits or vasectomies. Just a Samoan woman as a cook and masseuse, and a cave he could hide in during full moons. Scott thinks of all the things he hasn't got. He'll shake his fist and curse at that old David Scott. When he thinks of all the things he hasn't done, he knows David's out there having all his fun. Yep, old David Scott was a hell of a guy. He's just a twinkle in our leader's eye. And hell, let's be honest, Scott's doing okay with the help of his staff who make him behave. He keeps us employed and inspires our trust and gives us new things to laugh at on each Festivus. So better toast him now before we all get fired, or make room for old David Scott to be hired. And Scott thinks of all the things he hasn't got. He'll shake his fist and curse at that old David Scott. When he thinks of all the things he hasn't done, knows David's out there having all his fun. Old David's out there having all his fun.